Will Caitlin Clark come into the WNBA and do what she's doing right now immediately? Absolutely not.
Is it possible for a basketball legend to face a mass exodus that puts her entire legacy on the line? That's the burning question surrounding Cheryl Swoopes, the iconic figure in women's basketball who once seemed untouchable. When rumors started swirling about her alleged mistreatment of players, the sports world did a double take. How could a woman who paved the way for so many wind up at the center of such explosive allegations? And just when the controversy peaked, an unlikely figure stepped into the spotlight. Caitlin Clark, a rising sensation whose sheer talent threatened to eclipse everything else. Why are top players suddenly leaving Swoopes behind? And how does Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise fit into all the chaos? Stick around, because the twists and turns in this story will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about women's hoops. It all started with whispers, small murmurs in locker rooms and on social media threads that Cheryl Swoopes, the beloved university coach with a Hall of Fame resume, was pushing her players to a breaking point. What began as soft chatter soon erupted into a full-blown investigation, igniting debates among fans and sports insiders alike. Was Swoopes just a hard-nosed coach demanding excellence, or did her methods cross the line into toxic territory? At first, many refused to believe the rumors. After all, this was Cheryl Swoopes, the first woman ever signed to the WNBA, a pioneer who'd inspired countless young girls to pick up a basketball. Yet, as more players began to speak out, alleging she showed favoritism, created an environment of fear, and failed to respect basic player boundaries, the school had no choice but to take action. Officials stepped in to figure out what was really happening behind closed doors, promising a thorough and impartial review. Still, the broader public had only scraps of information. Some said the accusations were overblown. Others insisted they had first-hand knowledge of Swoopes crossing the line. Nobody seemed to have the full picture, and the swirling uncertainty only added fuel to the fire. But the question on everyone's mind was simple: how could someone hailed as a hero of the sport suddenly find herself in the hot seat? But as more details emerged, it became clear that this wasn't just about a few disgruntled players. To understand the gravity of the allegations, you have to step back and appreciate the magnitude of Swoopes' legacy. From her jaw-dropping performances at Texas Tech to her iconic status in the WNBA, Swoopes represented triumph, resilience, and possibility. She broke barriers, signed endorsement deals, and inspired a generation. For years, her name was synonymous with women's basketball excellence, which makes the current controversy all the more shocking. Could a trailblazer revered for her passion and determination harbor a dark side that players found too intense or even harmful? Rumors pointed to her intense coaching style, one that some described as intimidating and unforgiving. Although many top-level coaches walk that fine line between tough love and outright bullying, something about the volume of player complaints left the public stunned. In interviews, past colleagues painted conflicting pictures. Some praised her for championing women's sports and demanding high standards from her team. Others hinted that the same fierce determination that made her unstoppable on the court also made her volatile on the sidelines. It's a confusing intersection of respect for her achievements and suspicion that those achievements came at too high a cost. Yet there was another twist waiting in the wings, one that would shift the narrative away from Swoopes' storied history and onto an unexpected newcomer. When news broke that multiple players were either transferring out or refusing to sign with Swoopes' program, it rocked the university like an earthquake. It wasn't just a couple of disgruntled bench warmers, it was nearly the entire roster looking for a way out. From promising first-year stars to established veterans, the exodus reached a point where the school itself had to publicly acknowledge the crisis. Local sports reporters described the scene in almost apocalyptic terms, highlighting how morale within the locker room had plummeted. One player, speaking anonymously, claimed that Swoopes created an environment where we never felt safe to voice concerns. Another insisted the coaching staff's demands crossed into mental and emotional strain that no athlete should endure. Of course, not everyone went on record. Some simply packed up their bags and quietly moved on, refusing to say a word. What does it mean when nearly an entire team decides they're better off elsewhere, leaving behind what was supposed to be a golden opportunity to play under a basketball legend? In the cutthroat world of college sports, transferring is never a decision taken lightly. Scholarships, reputations, and future professional aspirations are all on the line. The fact that so many were willing to risk their own futures spoke volumes about whatever was happening behind closed doors. Suddenly, a narrative of unstoppable success took on darker undertones. Swoopes' biggest supporters didn't know how to respond, and social media was ablaze with speculation. Had she really gone too far? Could it be that the champion who broke glass ceilings in the WNBA was now driving away the very players she was supposed to mentor? But the drama was only just beginning, because a rising star named Caitlin Clark was about to turn heads in a way no one, not even Cheryl Swoopes, could have anticipated. Imagine being thrust into the national spotlight for your uncanny ability to sink shots from places on the court no one else would dare. That's Caitlin Clark in a nutshell. Even before she stepped onto the professional stage, her college performances were the stuff of legend, raining down three-pointers, dishing out assists, and dominating in a manner that left commentators speechless. Clark's magnetic personality and fearless style of play quickly generated comparisons to the biggest names in basketball, male or female. Her competitive fire was so intense that it was impossible to ignore, and fans flocked to see her in action, whether on television or in sold-out arenas. She had the self-confidence of someone who'd been dominating the game for years, and that bravado drew both admirers and skeptics. In the midst of Swoopes' turmoil, Clark's name began popping up in conversations she had absolutely nothing to do with. Commentators started musing whether Clark's instant popularity might overshadow a figure like Swoopes, whose legendary status had started to show cracks from the ongoing investigation. At first, it sounded absurd. How could a newcomer outshine a pioneer who helped build the league? But as Clark continued to light up scoreboards and break records, the question stopped sounding so far-fetched. In some corners of the basketball world, people wondered if Swoopes felt threatened by Clark's swift ascent, especially since some fans and the media seemed more excited about the rookie phenom than the drama around a historically revered icon. And indeed, as allegations piled up against Swoopes, Clark's star only burned brighter. Even critics, who once dismissed her as overhyped, found themselves speechless in the face of her performance. Yet was the tension between them real, or just an invention of a sports media hungry for drama? The answer wasn't so simple, and the growing buzz around a potential rivalry only added another layer of intrigue to the unfolding scandal. It's common for sports media to manufacture rivalries, but the whispers of tension between Cheryl Swoopes and Caitlin Clark gained an unusual amount of traction. Maybe it was because Swoopes, in some early commentary, appeared dismissive of Clark's capabilities, suggesting she might not live up to the colossal expectations so quickly. Maybe it was the timing. Clark was hitting her stride just as Swoopes was under investigation, leaving fans to wonder if the seasoned legend couldn't handle being upstaged. Some insiders hinted that resentment might be simmering. After all, if you're used to being the face of women's basketball, seeing headlines proclaim a new kid as the next big thing could sting, especially when your own reputation is on shaky ground. On social media, fans dissected every comment and interview, looking for proof that Swoopes had a personal vendetta against Clark or that Clark was relishing the downfall of a revered icon. Yet there's another angle. Perhaps Swoopes was simply unconvinced that Clark's college heroics would translate seamlessly into the pros. Basketball history is littered with phenoms who dazzled in school, but struggled once they hit the higher-level ranks. Maybe Swoopes genuinely believed Clark needed a reality check, and her critique was nothing more than tough love honesty. But timing is everything, and her skepticism took on a different light amidst the wave of negative press. Fans were torn. Some felt Swoopes deserved the benefit of the doubt. She'd earned that from years of groundbreaking success. Others believed she was clinging to her throne at the expense of a rising star. Whatever the case, the notion of a brewing rivalry, spurred on by rumors and half-confirmed insider chatter, dominated sports talk shows and message boards alike. Meanwhile, the WNBA was undergoing its own major shifts, turning the Swoopes-Clark situation into something bigger than just a personal feud. The Professional Women's League was used to being overshadowed by men's sports, but in recent years, new stars and bold personalities changed that. Suddenly, WNBA games saw spikes in viewership, and social media buzzed with highlight reels that went viral in a matter of hours. The old guard, featuring legends like Swoopes, looked on with pride and maybe a dash of envy as a fresh generation stepped forward with no intention of waiting their turn. One of the biggest markers of this shift was how quickly top talent moved. Free agency became a whirlwind, with teams like the Indiana Fever grabbing championship-caliber players who wanted to be part of a new wave. That's where Caitlin Clark came in. As soon as she was in the mix, the entire conversation changed. Here was a player whose name alone was enough to draw excitement, overshadowing more established veterans. Fans started calling it the Clark effect. Under normal circumstances, Swoopes might have been front and center, offering her expertise as a commentator or coach, but the ongoing investigation at her university prompted a different approach. For a while, she tried to maintain her media presence, fielding questions about her legacy and Clark's emergence. Then, abruptly, she went silent. Rumors swirled that she was advised by lawyers to limit her public remarks, or that she simply didn't want to confront questions about the players who'd left her program. Her absence was conspicuous. Sports journalists who once counted on her insight noticed she was declining interviews. When big WNBA games took place, and everyone expected her voice to chime in, she was nowhere to be found. Speculation ran wild. Was she stepping back out of respect for Clark's meteoric rise, or was she merely avoiding the risk of fueling more headlines about her own controversies? But behind the scenes, even more intriguing details began to surface, suggesting that the rift went deeper than public perception. Once coaches and players started letting their guard down in private conversations, a pattern emerged. Some said Swoopes' struggles at the collegiate level mirrored issues she'd reportedly had even in her playing days. Intense competitiveness, sometimes boiling over into clashes with teammates or staff. Of course, back then, a winning record and unstoppable on-court performances overshadowed any personal drama. Now, as a coach with a string of disgruntled players, the narrative had nowhere to hide. Insiders also mentioned that certain WNBA teams were cautious about associating with her while the investigation played out, worried about the optics and potential fallout. It's no secret that the women's game is tight-knit. If word spreads that a notable figure is under fire for player mistreatment, others often distance themselves to avoid becoming collateral damage. That means not only is Swoopes' collegiate reputation at stake, but her professional ties could be in jeopardy as well. Meanwhile, Clark's circle seemed unbothered by the drama. They continued to focus on her skyrocketing career, her record-breaking performances, her fearless shooting, her ability to energize a fan base that was hungry for the next big thing. In a sense, Clark's rise served as a loud statement about the evolving priorities of the sport. Fans craved showmanship, star power, and a fresh face unburdened by old controversies. And if Swoopes once held the keys to the kingdom of women's basketball, it now appeared she might be locked out. Still, the final chapter of Cheryl Swoopes' career is yet to be written, and whether she'll fade from relevance or rise from these allegations remains an open question. Whether you're here for the controversies, the triumphant comebacks, or the pure excitement of witnessing a new generation dominate the court, remember, basketball is bigger than just one person. Icons like Cheryl Swoopes laid the groundwork, and emerging forces like Caitlin Clark are building upon that foundation. What happens next is anyone's guess, but if history is any indicator, this sport is about to get a lot more interesting. So keep your eyes on the investigation, track Clark's next jaw-dropping performance, and brace yourself, because the tides of women's hoops are turning faster than anyone ever expected.